What I learned the hard way: divorce, workaholism, and bankruptcy. That's right. Tough shit, man. But I got to go on record. I have to be open because I know a lot of men are going through this. So I'm going to give you my experiences and what I went through. I see a lot of it on TikTok about men, unhappy men, and being bitter and resentful. That's not where I'm coming from. I'm coming from 2 different divorces. One, my original marriage of 12 years, 3 children, and I was rocking high. Great education, running a business, had a succession plan to buy the business. I was rocking, man. I was 33 years old when my first wife asked me for a divorce. So remember that number. 12 years of marriage. So what did I have to learn? I'm one of 11 kids. I was the first one that really got hit on a divorce where I had to protect my assets. Because I had assets at 33. But I learned something. They were marriage assets. One thing I've learned, because I was not prepared, I had a strategic plan for my career, I had a strategic plan for my 3 children. I'm a real strategic guy with game plans. Well, I didn't see this coming. I didn't see a request for a divorce and what it meant. It affected everything. It affected my education, it affected my job, my career, it affected my relationship with my kids. I had a report to court. I had to hire attorneys. I had no clue. I was really good at business and transactions and sales and collaboration. I was really good at that. And at 33, I had a mind of a businessman of experience and knowledge of probably in his 50s. I was proud of it. I was proud that, I had a really good team. What do you mean by a team? Well, I played sports all my life, so I would pick and choose my team, my athletes. When I had a executive position at my company, I picked my management team. Very similar to a football coach or a general manager. You pick your team, the team that you believe you could trust, that's going to implement, it's going to execute, that we're aligned. I thought that's what my wife wanted and had. And I didn't have the addictions until I found out I was a workaholic. I wasn't present. I wasn't my mother and my father's generation, of dedication and commitment and aligned. I didn't meet the cliche of a good woman makes you. I failed. So guess what I had to do? I had to change my life. I started meeting, they had men's group back then. I started working out very heavily to get in shape because I had so much free time. Sure, I was lonely, but you know what? I had a lot of friends. I had contacts that went through divorce, older, and I was 33, just like Jesus Christ. Crucified at 33. That's how I felt. I was crucified. I could make a joke out of it, but it hurt, man. It hurt. And to be honest, I didn't have support at home because it scared the shit out of my 10 brothers and sisters. Because I was the golden child. I was the guy. I was running the family business. That was the biggest fear is, is your first wife going to get a piece of the pie? And yes, I went to trial. Yes, there were attorneys involved. Yes, I felt like a criminal. Yes, I had to fight for visitation. This is back in the 80s. This isn't feel sorry for Rock. No, I'm just letting you know because I'm sure there's people out there listening because my YouTube views and responses, I hear about it. And I reply. And I know because I've been through it. People that haven't been through a divorce have no clue of the shit you're going to go through, the emotional aspect of it. Not only the emotional, mental, physical, but financial. And it affects everybody. The good, the bad, the ugly. And you become almost like a leper in leprosy. Because they feel like, God, if Rock could go through it, what about me? Yeah. It took me years. So let me tell you the steps. The steps were basically 1 full year. And that full year was 6 figures in attorney fees in 1988. Yeah. Between the two of us. And where do you think the cash came from? Did I have a prenup? Did I know my assets at the time? Yeah, in my head. But I didn't know them the way the attorneys knew them. For trial. Then we went to trial for 3 days. Why? Because there was a discussion about equity position at the family business. Thank God I didn't have anything. We had no clue how bad this was going to be and how bad it was going to separate the division of the family. We're talking about friends, family, spouses, and I'm one of 11 children, plus my parents. So I'm only going to give you the business aspect of it, because that's what you got to take into consideration, because most people are looking at this emotional, I want to get back, or I'm having an affair, or whatever you're going to do. Whatever you're going through. This is for the people that are currently in a divorce or contemplating a divorce. You know how they say at death, get your house in order? You better fucking get your house in order in a marriage. If you're a team, you share that information. But there's always a breadwinner. Who's the breadwinner? And if it is just strictly finance, that's not a marriage. That's not love. And I'm going to tell you about that. So basically, it took a year to be prepared for trial, which is all bullshit. The attorneys are terrible. Judge is terrible. State of Minnesota. Yeah. I got stuck. I'll never forget, my dad was brought in as a witness to testify about my financial situation. So here I am, going through 3 days of trial. And believe me, I realized my attorney had no clue of what I was going through. He just wasn't empathetic or compassionate. It was just a business. Just a business for these attorneys. There I am in trial, trying to protect myself and my 3 kids. This is how emotional I was. I had my 3 pictures of my kids at ages, 12, 10, and 7 or something like that, in front of me, hoping that she would see that I only care about my kids, and I care about my kids. I never thought she'd go to trial with me. My ex-wife, my first ex-wife. After 3 days, the very first day was a long day. My dad was brought in, as I mentioned, as a witness to testify for certain questions related to the business and my background and so on. They even talked about my vocation, They had a vocational expert. They did everything that they could to add up price. Seriously. And I had a very good friend of mine going through the same process. Family business, going through a divorce. And he settled. He settled 5-year lump sum deal, and I thought he was crazy because I thought there was justice and righteousness and the fair thing to do in the state of Minnesota. I thought he was crazy. But you know what? I'll tell you more here before I get to the end. So my father comes in to testify, and while we're sitting in this 1800s building, it was very old. My dad sat next to me, and he was in a suit and everything. My dad's, so he was only in his early 60s. Yeah, because he's 28 years older than me. So we're sitting there, and I said, Dad, I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry you're going through this, but I need you. He says, Rock, don't worry about it. You might be going through this 2-3 more times in your lifetime. I was shocked. I was shocked that he said that. Because I said, no way. Another thing is, I talked to the priest. I'm Catholic. And he kept saying, oh, Rock, I know you and I know your family. There's got to be something. Are you having an affair? Are you this? Are you that? Are you an alcoholic? Are you abusive? Are you this? Are you that? No. And I wanted to get back. For at least 6 months, I thought it would change. It did not change. So let's fast forward. So after that, within 4 months, I got the decree. Then my attorney says, go down to the county and pick up the decree. I didn't even open it. Why? I was hoping for the best. And what was I hoping for? Something fair. I didn't know what. I went down, got the decree, and before I went, this is in St. Paul, Minnesota, before I went to drop it off, I did not open it because I wanted my attorney to explain it to me. So I went to the local Catholic church to pray to Jesus and Mary that please help me, get me through this situation. Because for a year, I was sleeping at hotels, friends. I rented a room with a friend of mine for $300 a month. Here I was an executive, embarrassed, ashamed. My father even said, if you can't run a business of 150 employees, how can you run your family? You're out. Which I was. They made it very difficult for me to get back into the business. That's another story. So here I am. I leave the church. Not too far, I go to the attorney's office. I meet with him. He opens up this huge envelope. My decree was like 48, 50 pages. And he fanned through it like it was garbage. It got to the real key point. The key point, it wasn't child support. No, that's a guide. It's a given based on your income. The big issue was when he said to me while I was sitting across from him, not knowing what he was reading and what clauses he was looking at, he says, Rock, you got slaughtered. You got slaughtered. I'm looking at him like, you're my attorney. What happened to we? We're not in on this together? I got hit for lifetime maintenance, lifetime alimony. In 1988, 89. Plus, they'll throw a restraining order on you for the hell of it. This is how ashamed and, what's the word? Belittling me and my reputation of a family man and a businessman in the community. My kids were going to Catholic church or at schools, parochial schools. That hurt so bad because they were the only ones that I know of at that time that their parents were divorced in 1988, 89. We just weren't accustomed to that in St. Paul, Minnesota. So guess what? Of course I'm going to appeal. I had to get a different attorney for that. And I wanted to pay my attorney because I didn't have the money to pay my attorney. They ended up putting a payment schedule together over like 3 years. That's how bad it was. I couldn't afford it. Plus, I'm living with a guy for $300. Monthly alimony payments and child support. They got the house, they got all the assets, etc., etc. But I learned something, as I mentioned. I went to Harvard Business School. I knew guys that went through divorce, and they said, Rock, keep everything that appreciates. Forget the house. Forget the car. Forget the shit. Keep your Roth. Keep your, the Roth didn't exist at that time. Keep your pension. I had a pension plan. And I had to save. I had to live accordingly. Child support and alimony was 85% of my take home. Just so you know. That's what you got to look at. How bad it gets. Okay? Now, this can't last forever, right? So what do? I buckle down and says, okay, I got to face this. Going back to the appeal, I lost. Okay? I lost that. That was another, back in those days, $15,000. No change, Rock. Then I find out later that it's really tough to question a judge. And they're all connected anyway. You know? They all know each other. And what did he miss? Is there malpractice issues? Or no. Hey, that's another tip I'm going to give you later on about attorneys. Especially divorce attorneys. The worst. Okay? They're hard to find. Good ones and so on. But you got to prepare for it. I was reacting to everything. Everything. Then I was so ashamed. It was like picking up my kids like cattle. I'd pull up and I was fighting. I had a 3-page visitation schedule that I paid people for and met men that went through this to get my rights. They had to have an attorney write it up and put it in the decree. But guess what? People don't honor contracts. Nah. No. It's easy to walk away because then if you contest something or fight something like the appeal, it's just attorneys. Nothing's going to change. Takes years. You know what's really funny is our family was like, have her change her last name. That doesn't happen. I could say, hey, don't badmouth the ex-wife, don't do this, don't do that. Yeah, but you know what? At the end of the day, you got to pay. And believe me, if you miss a payment, if you do something wrong, in the state of Minnesota back in the 80s, they would put you on the newspaper as a deadbeat dad. And they would take your license away. So what did I do? I said, oh my God. Automatic payment or whatever it was. Withdrawal. And I paid the county. Why? Because I didn't trust her. I didn't trust the system. Then there's COLA. There's COLA. Cost of living adjustment and child support. It's terrible, man. And lifetime support. Who else got lifetime support? That's the risk you're taking when you go to trial. So it's so important to call your own shot, to negotiate your own deal. That's what I learned. I did not have a prenup. I was 22 years old. I married my high school sweetheart. And believe me, people get coached, well coached, that have been through divorce, or their parents been through divorce, or they have a sibling that's been through a divorce, or an attorney, and they're going to fuck you up. They're already gone, by the way. They're already gone. I got so many stories I can share, but I'm not going to share all these issues because my kids are probably listening to this YouTube, which they do. They know the story, but they don't know what I went through. They don't know what I went through, my emotions and so on. But now that I'm at 71 years old, I'm going to let them know. And no one knows what's going to happen next in their marriages, or my friends' marriages, or even my ex-wife. Did she remarry? After all these years, almost 40 years we've been divorced, never remarried. Why? I think it has to do with finance. You see? Because even if a guy comes through or somebody wants to, they're going to be looking at the finances. Now we're going to get into the second marriage, okay? So I was single for 22 years. Did you hear that? 22 years. I was 55. I thought I was ready. I was engaged during those 22 years, but I was a workaholic. Not an alcoholic, not a drug addict. I dated a lot of women. I was engaged to women and so on. But I knew at the end of the day that I don't know if I want to do this again. That's right. I knew I didn't want to have additional children. I was lucky I had children in my 20s. It was a big plus. Big plus. I was young enough that I didn't have to deal with, a divorce in my 60s, or retirement, or Social Security and Medicare and all those things that come about. I was lucky, seriously, blessed and lucky that my wife asked for a divorce, because it changed my life for the better. My brother asked me many years ago, "Hey, Rock, what would your life be like if you were still married to Renee?" And he's married 40 years. I says, "Listen, I could have never achieved what I've done in my lifetime. I went through a lot of shit, financially, mentally, emotionally, and employees, and finance and all this other stuff. But you know what? I have to say, not only was I blessed, I was lucky. I feel really lucky. I know people that never get through it. Never get through addictions, never get through a divorce, never get through a heart attack, never get through something. And we all go through it. So I feel honored that I could even do this YouTube to help people. Okay. So I went for 22 years, moved to Florida. All my kids are graduates of college. Eventually got married. And I was single. I went down to Florida. My parents didn't know exactly what I was going to do. I had two businesses in those 22 years that I bought and sold and started. So I was a true entrepreneur. I was self-employed. I liked it, but I was investing in myself. I was investing in myself. But I took care of my kids. Very committed. I wrote my book, a memoir. This story here, not all the details like this, but I do have a book called They Named You Right by LaManna. I touch upon things about the divorce and about the business acquisition and the sale and what I went through. So anyway, I come down to Florida, and I'm commuting to Minnesota and Florida. Got my real estate license. I went through stuff, dating off and on. I had a woman in my mind that I thought would be right for me, because now I'm in my early 50s. I have an annulment, the Catholic Church. I wanted to marry a Catholic woman that had a faith, believed in God, and so on. I wanted somebody that was either divorced or single or never married or whatever it is. Just make sure that you don't have a crazy dude, after you for whatever reasons. I didn't want any drama. And when it came down to children, somebody that already had children or were mature. The other criteria was, I hope she's got a job, she likes what she does. So I met a woman in church, Catholic church. I asked her out for breakfast, saw her in church, met her, and approached her at a gas station and asked her out for breakfast. And she says, fine. I says, okay. Go out for breakfast. Had a accent. She was from Colombia. Spoke very good English. Was a dual citizen, United States, 30 years or something like that. And I thought that was the one. She had a job. She had a couple licenses that she could perform a job. She had a condo. And I thought she was responsible, accountable, and respectful, and kind, and all that. I was attracted to her, so it was looking good. I found out, never married, no children. Biologically, she couldn't have children. It was like, oh my God. God put this woman in front of me. Beautiful. We made it work while we dated. Nice parents, Colombian parents. Didn't understand them because they spoke Spanish, basically. I respected them. They respected me. Understand, she was 8 years younger. Okay? So I thought everything was looking good. We went on retreats together. We traveled a little bit. We didn't move in each other because our faith, no cohabitation. We agreed, no cohabitation. A lot of that was my feeling that I don't want my kids to know I'm cohabitating. Can you believe it? I was old school, man. Catholic, going to get married in the church. I had everything lined up. Annulment, married in the church. That was number one. We shared our faith. But that was the biggest thing we had. And in travel and so on. So I thought, you know what? This is time. Asked her to marry me. She agreed, but it wasn't the kneel down and all this other stuff. She'd never been married. I funded the wedding. I didn't want to burden my kids. So I just said, hey, listen, I introduced everybody prior. We traveled, and I introduced her to my kids and my parents and that. I met her parents and all that. But then I think average age at the wedding reception was maybe 80. My dad was my best man. Yeah. My dad's going to be 100. So we got married in 2010. We had a prenup. We went through the process. It's going to be a transaction. You got your attorney, I got my attorney. We gathered our assets and so on. And the first thing was my attorney said, hey, Rock, she has no assets. I said, oh, that's okay. That's okay. Just so I'm protected. No problem. Whatever she earned, she could keep. I don't care. She had minimal assets. She owned her car, which is all beat up. But, I treated her right. And like my dad always said, Rock, you're too generous to people. Well, I'm accustomed, like my mother, my parents were poor, and so their philanthropy was always the poor, young kids, and special needs. And I've carried that on. So anyway, the marriage lasted, it was month to month, year to year. And I always thought the prenup would help me. I really did. State of Florida, by the way. I thought the prenup, owning all my assets, my home, everything was overdone when it comes down to agreements and attorneys and the law in the state of Florida on marriage, the contract. A friend of mine who was an attorney for many, many years, Ron, he was married for over 50 years. He said to me, he says, Rock, this is 2 years after I got married. He goes, Rock, I've represented many people, and second marriage always seemed like it's more of a transaction. I've only been married once, he said to me. And he said, the first marriage is for love. I look at it this way. I believe the second marriage is a contract. And I thought about that, and I said to myself, because I was only 2 years into the marriage, I said, yeah, but I'm somebody different. I'm loyal, I'm dedicated, I'm committed, I've never cheated. Guess what happened? It got so bad, we started going to couples therapy every other year. I would have her pick the therapist, and it was always down to God. God will provide. And near the end, I'd say year 10. Yeah, year 10. It got really bad to the point where I didn't care. I started traveling alone overseas, and I just looked at the finances. I was under Social Security at 66, full benefit. I started, when I retire, I can't financially keep this up without an income. What if I got hurt or what if I got sick? I met her in church, remember? I met my second wife in church. And I asked her for the divorce in church. We happened to be in church. And the Mass was finished. And we were both sitting there. And I had this word from the homily about surrender. Surrender. And she said, well, let's go. She was late, of course. We drove separate cars. Because by then, we weren't communicating. This was after COVID and everything. COVID was a big hit, too. Because I was still working, still traveling. I asked her. I said, you know what? I think it's time that we legally separate. I always used to use the word in those first 12 years, divorce. Let's consider a divorce. Or why don't you move in with your parents and let's think about it. She wouldn't do it. And she said to me, you will kill my parents if we divorce. I'm like, your sister's been divorced. Your brother's been divorced. Come on. It was really sad. It was really sad. So I pull out of the car. She's in the car I bought for her, and the insurance and everything else. And she hadn't worked for, God, at least 5 years. Yeah, right around COVID, a couple of years before COVID. I became resentful and vengeful and bitter. I was all, how can I fake this? I can't fake it. Plus, I'm getting older. I'm an old man. So I just said to myself, okay, that's it. So I pull out, I start driving away, and here she's in her car in the empty parking lot crying. And I thought, you know what? I always caved. Well, come on, let's try again. So this, for whatever reason, I didn't know that I was that committed for the divorce. But I thought I had everything in my mind. I got the prenup. Let's get a mediator in. No attorneys. I'll make her an offer, a cash offer, and walk away. And help her. Help her get with her parents. In fact, she was at her parents every night for the last 3 years anyway. The only relationship we had was possibly walking once in a while, but never talking to each other. I was so consumed with work. I was worried about finances. And she would cook. That's one thing I have to say in this marriage was I ate well when it came down to healthy. So I know how to eat now, and what time to eat. So that worked out. So as I pulled away, I saw her crying. I felt bad. 2 hours later, I said, I better call the attorney because here's my game plan. The attorney that wrote up the prenup. So I call Lenny. His name is Lenny. He says, Lenny, Yvette and I are going to divorce. We want to take a peek at that prenup and make sure that I'm in position because we're going to meet with the mediator soon. He goes, Rock, Yvette's already called me. Oh, you're kidding me. Yeah. Yeah, and I told her I can't represent her. She's got her own attorney. And I can't represent you anymore because I'm not a divorce attorney. I think, oh my God. So we met with the mediator. She threw that out. And I got a cease and desist letter from the mediator saying that she hired an attorney. What they did was they contested the prenup. And so we spent 7 months fighting that. I couldn't get her out of my own home. I was forewarned, be careful. And it was bad. We had mediators involved, attorneys involved. We had a valuation done on her. At the end of the day, my attorney fired me because I wanted to negotiate a deal. I did not want to go to trial. She wanted to go to trial. Well, you know why they want to go to trial is they get that extra 25 to 50 grand each. And my ex-wife, number 2, had no money, so I was going to have to pay her attorney fees eventually with the state of Florida. So what I'm saying here is be real careful and prepare. One other item that an attorney told me in Minnesota while I was doing some deals, he goes, Rock, business contracts are to prevent litigation. You don't want to get sued. You want to prevent lawsuits. They say 98%, 99% of lawsuits are settled. That's why. And attorneys don't want to prepare for a trial. It's too expensive. For them, paralegals, then they got to work. They got to prepare a strategy. They don't want to work for a strategy. So at the end of the day, I just gave you my story. I've been married twice for 24 years combined. I've had alimony. I've had lump sums. I've had child support. And you don't want to know financially, because I am a financial guy. I know my net worth. That was one of my strategies to live into retirement and move on, is to get a divorce because I couldn't afford another wife. You see? So now I got involved with the family and oh, Rock, you embarrassed us. You're going through divorce. Oh, we liked her and this. Psh, nobody knows what's going on behind closed doors. I will tell you this. It's all a lie with a lot of people anyway. But I want to say this, especially to the men, because that's who really listens to me. Because you're the primary provider. If you've been married 30, 40 years, you better know the rules of your state. That's when I learned, if I would have known that if I divorced, pulled the trigger before the 7th year I was married, 0 alimony, 0 discussion. And see, thank God I didn't have child support and all this other stuff. It was just money. Everything was money. And the attorneys, money. I had to pay her fees. And they will sue you for collections. So you got to pay it, man. Is everything negotiable? It could be. But if they put a contempt on court on you, you're screwed. So you got to make sure you know the rules. Okay? Know the rules. And just got to accept them. I know a guy back in the day that he moved to Ohio so he can divorce his wife in Minnesota with Ohio laws, because he was a resident of Ohio, because they're more favorable towards the man. This is how fucked up shit is. Okay? Is it love? Okay? It could be. I don't want to be cynical. In fact, I prefer people, but I will tell you this. I'm at the point in my life that I cry at weddings, not at funerals. Funerals, I know it's over and it's, hey, you lived a good life. That's why they call it a celebration. A wedding, they're just getting into it. Okay? So, here's my advice. If you're already in it, you know it's trouble. And if you could settle, that's the best thing to do. Don't go to trial, because it's just going to get messed up. And you will file bankruptcy. One of the attorneys that I utilize, he goes, Rock, I have kind of a unique business. my primary business is bankruptcy. I said, oh, really? He goes, yeah. They come through the front door, usually men. They come through the front door looking for a divorce, and they walk out the back door bankrupt. That's what he told me. And I believe it. Now, bankruptcy, have I looked into it? Oh, sure. Have I ever filed? No. But I looked into it. I was prepared because I didn't want to lose any more wealth. Believe me, there's no way if you sign a contract with the state saying you're going to pay and you're obligated to pay these liabilities, there's no way you're going to get out of it unless you hire an attorney and appeal and renegotiate, or something bad happens. Because if something bad happens, it's even worse. And there's a lot of games, man. It takes time, and there's lawyers involved, there's court costs, and you're going to just get worse. And you poor guys that have to deal with kids. This is where I'm saying God gave me the opportunity to get out of marriages and just pay the money. Walk away from all the emotional drama and the bullshit. Just accept it. And by the way, do you think I ever got an apology or a thank you for what I did for my 3 kids and provide for her? How about my second wife? The second wife. I haven't seen her since I gave her a check 3 years ago. No thank you, no nothing. Except, here's my wire instructions. You're big boys, man. You get married, you're big boys. You better take care of this shit. And it is a business. Marriage is a business with the state. The religion and your background with your family and all that. I love kids. I say babies. Babies, babies, babies. I'm one of 11, as I mentioned. My parents got over 110 descendants. I love babies. I adopt kids. I have a foundation that gives to special needs kids and underprivileged. Why? Because they didn't have the opportunity that I got. Or my kids. Are my kids entitled? I say no. Why? Because I wouldn't let them. Were my ex-wives entitled? You're fucking right they were. And that's the way they were raised. Shame on me. So, I'm going to finish this up. Here's the big tips, man. When people ask me, and they have, Rock, what's your recommendation? These are usually younger people looking at marriage for the first time, second time, third time, whatever. I know people have been married 5 times. Okay? But they know when to get out. It's like that loophole. If you're going to get out in the first 7 years in the state of Florida. Okay? You just keep churning, man. Keep churning. You're probably broke, but still, you're going to live life. You only live life once. So here's my tips to my brothers, my sisters, and their children. If they ask me for advice, first of all, they're not going to ask me for marriage. But, Rock, how to protect myself just in case, okay? Number 1, do a background check on your to-be spouse. Here's why I say that. During my discovery of my second divorce, we discovered bankruptcy in her past, foreclosure in her past, lawsuits with the county, did not file her taxes correctly with my name on it. I had to go through issues with the IRS, and lies, deceit, betrayal. Don't forget, you got the attorneys involved. And the prenup was all a lie. They contested it, that I never signed it. Even though we had witnesses, nobody would come about and do it. And the Catholic Church don't give a shit. They're exempt from the state. People say, well, Rock, didn't the prenup? No. Because the cost of fighting it and fighting for justice and righteousness would have cost me another at least $100,000 to get a yes or a no. That's how risky it is. That's like I told you the first time. I went to trial. I should have never went to trial. So I negotiated my own deal after my first attorney, a woman, said, Rock, you're fired. I'm saying, why am I fired? Because I'm not going to negotiate the deal for you. I want to go to trial. That's my recommendation. I said, I'm not going to trial. So I had to go find somebody else. Seriously. And then we negotiated through mediation. Now, not only do you get a background check on your future spouse, number two, you get a background check on the family. Because you're going to find shit behind the scenes. And that's how they were brought up. You're going to find out, like, it's a title search. It's a private investigator. It's a lot cheaper and find out. But does it work? No, I'm saying before the marriage. Before the marriage. A prenup? I don't know. But I will tell you this. If they balk at a prenup, walk away. Walk away. Now, why did my second wife not contest or not object to a prenup? She had nothing. She had nothing. It was probably a plan. By the way, later on, her last joint tax return, you always have your category of what you do. She changed hers from consultant to homemaker. Homemaker. That's right. So I know this is nasty shit, but listen, my YouTube, everybody wants to talk about divorce. My kids, if they listen to this, I'm going to get a balk, but I don't care. What are you going to do? It's the truth. And guess what? I'm not naming names. Okay? The other thing is, I'm talking about the truth. I'm trying to protect the people that really care. Because right now, there's a lot of problems with employment. And the older we get, you talk about Social Security. You talk about, what does Doge talk about? Fraud. Okay? Well, guess what? It could be happening in your home. And you don't even know it. So you better pay attention. That's my tips, man. We started this out with divorce, workaholism or addiction, okay, and bankruptcy, because it's all part of the deal. Marriage is possibility of a divorce, possibility of an addiction, either party, possibility of a bankruptcy. It's harsh, but I'm letting you know. This is the real world out there. And not everybody's as successful as you think they are. Okay? So anyway, I'm going to leave you with what I usually say, my mantra, which is what? Always bring joy. I'm just thankful I got through it. Because why? Not only am I blessed, I'm lucky, and I have a purpose. And this is part of my purpose as I age, is to say, you know what? I got to move on, man. If I could help you, this is what helps people. I have no issue with being trustworthy, being transparent, and just telling you. This is authentic. So good luck. If you have any responses, no problem. Reply. That's the reason why I got on this subject, is because it's hot right now on my YouTube channel. And I appreciate you either to subscribe or listen. Contact me direct. You want some tips, some hard tips? I'm just giving you my story. But be aware. Prepare as far as you can go. All right? I'll talk to you soon.